So today our theme is around letting go. And the 12th sutra, we were talking about the sutras last week a little bit. So the 12th sutra says that in order to reach this sort of state of yoga, this kind of elusive state of yoga where we keep the mind focused for longer periods of time, in order to reach that state, we need to do the practice. So last week we talked about making a commitment, doing the practice, bringing the attention back to something in the present moment whenever we notice that we've wandered. So that's one ingredient of reaching the state of yoga, the state of being more present. And the other ingredient is letting go. So we have to balance those two pieces. And letting go can mean a whole bunch of different things. But if you've ever tried to reach a goal and made a commitment, we move forward. But it's like if you're holding on to monkey bars, you can move forward and do the practice and take action. But until you let go, you're never going to actually go in the direction you want to go if you're holding on to patterns and habits from the past. So we have to let go of the way that we've been doing things in order to move forward into a new way of doing things. So in yoga, the breath, the exhale part of the breath represents the letting go. So we're going to focus a lot today on the exhale and work with some forward bends. So that idea of going inward and using the breath to kind of soften and to release. You might find it helpful today to have a couple of blocks and a belt, as well as a blanket. But if you don't have those things, you can improvise or do without them. So I'll see you on the mat, and we'll start lying down. So you can come to your mat and find a comfortable position. If lying down isn't the right position for you this morning, maybe you prefer to sit. That's also great. So whatever works. So as you get comfortable, you can have your legs bent or straight. The arms could rest on the ground or maybe somewhere on your body. And then starting to tune into your breath as it is, without trying to change anything. Just simply noticing the breath coming and going. And then start to tune into the exhalation. So the exhale is when we let the breath go, literally. And figuratively also, this idea that we could let go of whatever tension, whatever holding we've got going on physically or mentally or emotionally. And if there's something in particular in your life you'd like to let go of, you might bring that to mind, but try not to create a big story around that or a plan as to how you might let that go. And maybe not bring to mind the biggest thing that you need to let go of, the thing that's sticky and difficult. Be something not too challenging. If there's something that comes to mind, you can use that. If not, just the energy and the feeling of letting go. And if there is something in particular, you might imagine it just dissolving as you exhale. So again, no story, no plan, just that energy of letting go. You might be aware of holding tension anywhere in your body and have the intention of letting that go as much as possible. As you exhale and sink down. So from here, whatever position you might happen to be in, you can go ahead and bend your knees, bring your feet flat to the floor, and let your hands come to rest on your body where you're able to feel your breath, so somewhere around the belly or the rib cage. And we'll put a little bit more emphasis on the exhalation now, with a feeling of, as you move into the exhale, put a little pressure into your feet. Feel your lower back flatten, the tailbone lifts just slightly, make it very subtle. And then as you inhale, simply relax, just let the breath come. Exhaling, put that little bit of pressure down into the feet. Feel the lower back lengthen, and then inhale and relax. A few more like this. And it's a very subtle movement, not so it's creating tension or you're forcing anything. Just a little bit of downward pressure through the feet. On the exhale, complete softening and opening to the inhale. Great. And then let that go. Bring the hands down to your sides. Taking a breath in, extend the arms any amount overhead. It could be all the way to the floor or just until the point where your shoulders say that's enough, and then bring them back down to your sides. Inhaling, the arms lift. And exhaling, back down to your sides. If you find it helpful and it doesn't create any strain for you, at the end of your exhale, when the arms come down to your sides, you might pause with the breath out for a moment and then inhale. It's not really a holding of the breath. We're just exaggerating the natural space that's already there, pausing briefly before inhaling. So alternate bringing the knees into the chest now. So as the arms come down, one knee comes in, give a little squeeze. You can keep that little hold after exhale if that helps. If you find it relaxing rather than straining in any way. So your arms go overhead as the foot comes down. And then knee comes to chest, hands around the knee or shin. Come to the point where the right knee is into the chest and stay there for a few breaths. For the next movement, you can either take your hands behind your thigh or you can just let them rest wherever they're comfortable. And we'll move the legs straighter toward the ceiling and then bend it toward the chest. So you want to just feel a nice little stretch, nothing too extreme here. Letting go of the need to create any particular form. Really tune into your body, finding where that stretch begins, where it feels a little more intense, and then releasing before it becomes the kind of stretch that creates tension or holding or resistance. You can leave the leg in the air and slowly circle your ankle around. Try to stay tuned into the sensations all the way up the leg. Again, if it feels like a strain to hold the leg, if your shoulders, neck, or face are working more than you want, just let the hands rest on the body or the ground. And then relax your ankle, give the leg a little shake, bend it in towards the body, and extend the other leg, your left leg, straight out on the ground, keeping that leg active, press down as you draw in. You could be holding above or behind the knee here. And then as you release the right foot to the floor, take the arms overhead, breathing in. And then as you exhale, bring the left knee into your chest. Again, holding over or behind the knee. Taking a couple of breaths here. And then extending and then bending the knee. And again, it's not about going as far as you possibly can, but tuning in and letting go of the need to create any particular form as you listen to your body's wisdom. You can leave the leg in the air, either holding on or not, as you slowly circle the ankle around. One way, then the other. And then relax the ankle, give the leg a little shake. And again, bring the knee into the chest, hold over or behind the knee. And extend the right leg on the ground, keeping, again, that leg active. Heel gently pressing down. Feel the thigh drawing up toward the hip. And take a few more breaths here. And then taking the foot down, reach the arms overhead, breathing in. And as you exhale, bend the right knee, bring the arms down, and end up back more or less where we started. So from here, if you have something under your head, you might check in as we prepare to do a little dynamic bridge. You may want to move that out from behind your head. So when we lift up, the neck flexes, and it's going to flex even more if there's something behind your head. So you might just see how that feels. Walk the heels in. The heels are underneath the knees. The hands are down by your side. You can turn the palms up, move the arms a little bit away from the body to feel your shoulders really soften and relax here. Let's come back to where we started today, taking a breath in. Exhale, pressing the feet down, feeling the lower back lengthen. Try that again. Inhale, relax. Exhale, press down. We'll do one more breath like that. And then from there, as you start to lift, you're going to lift on an inhale, pressing down into the feet, coming up any amount. Exhale, lower down. At the end of your exhale, you might pause there with the breath for 1 second or maybe 2, and then inhale, lift. Exhale, release. Good. Again, inhale, lift. Exhale, release. Maybe again, pause after your exhale if that's good for you today. And one more. Great. And then coming back to a neutral position with the knees bent. If you have a belt handy, you can use the belt. If not, you can use your hands to reach around the leg. So you can take the belt and bring the bottom of it around your right foot, and then let the hands come to rest on the ground. So if you're not using a belt, you can use the hands behind the knee, move the leg. We'll be moving the legs so you can bend and straighten just a little bit or move the leg back and forth to get some stretch. A belt just gives you a little more reach. And it can be anything. This is a belt from an old bathrobe. It could be an official yoga belt or something improvised. You're going to move the leg a little away from you, a little towards you. You can bend the knee as much as you need to. We're just trying to discover where the stretch begins and when our body says, that's enough. And ideally, we're backing off before we create tension in the body. So using this as a bit of an exercise in mindfulness to notice the messages that we receive from the body. And if you're not feeling much sensation, you might simply just be aware of that. Great. And then finding the neutral position for the legs. If you're holding a belt, you can reach up towards the foot and keep the arm straight. If not, you can reach toward the calf or the thigh and gently draw the leg down and press it back up. So either way, with or without a belt, bending the knee, bringing the thigh toward the chest, and then pressing back up into the belt. You can resist a little bit with your hands so that you're pushing a little into the belt or into your hands to feel a little more activation of the muscles. Great. And then we'll release the belt, bring the foot to the floor, and work with the other side. So starting, and this is all very dynamic, the leg straight or slightly bent, moving the leg away and towards you. In any amount, let go of the need to come to any particular form or have any particular experience here. Just noticing what's actually happening. When your body says, oh, the stretch has gone away, as you move away, and oh, there's the stretch back, and that's enough. Ideally, before creating tension and resistance. And eventually you can reach up if you're using a belt or to the back of the leg in some way, drawing the knee down toward the chest, resisting as you push back up. And then from here, we'll release the belt altogether, move it aside, and come back to a neutral position. So here we'll do kind of a half twist. Usually when we're doing the spinal twist, both knees move side to side, but here we'll just move one knee at a time. The hands can rest on your body or on the floor, whatever's comfortable. So we'll take one knee, move it toward the ground, and you'll feel your hips probably rock a bit in that direction, and then come back to the center, go the other way. Again, the hips will rock a little. The opposite hip might lift, back to center. Going side to side like that a few times. And then when you do come back to center next time, we can try both legs if that progression feels good to you. Otherwise, just stay with one leg at a time. So opening the knees apart, soles of the feet come together, and then bringing the knees back together. You can bring the knees and squeeze them a little bit, press down into the earth, and then inhale as you open the knees. Exhale as you bring them back together. Maybe press down in that little bit of space that you may be aware of at the end of your exhale, and then inhale to open. So here is where you might appreciate a couple of blocks, or maybe could be cushions, pillows, blankets that you use to support your knees. This is not a requirement for everyone. It's helpful for me to not overstretch in this pose if I use blocks to support my knees. But I know that for some people that's not necessary. So options are to stay with support, stay without support, keep moving in and out of the pose. And at any point, if it starts to feel like you're creating tension here, holding the legs in this position, just bring them back together, take a break, maybe check in, maybe move back to dynamic or back into the pose when you feel ready. We'll stay for a few breaths. So the hands can be on your body again or on the ground. Come back to your breath in a sense of dropping down with your exhalation. You could add that little bit of pause or awareness of that pause after your exhale if you find that helpful. And then gradually we'll bring the knees back together. And then invite the knees up into the chest. And we'll come back or come to that movement where we go forward and back with the knees. So straight arms, breathing in. Exhale, bend the elbows, bring the knees in. You can, again, be aware of that little space after your exhale. You don't have to do anything in particular to lengthen it, but maybe just be aware that that little bit of space is naturally there at the end of the exhale. Let the inhale come to you. And then gradually release your feet to the floor. You can take the feet a little bit wider than your hips, maybe about to the edges of your mat. Depends on the length of your legs, actually. And then let the knees fall together. So there's no effort in holding the legs there. Again, bring the hands onto your body somewhere. Simply pay attention to your breath. So there's no need to change anything here. If you're aware of that little pause after the exhale, you can tune into that. Otherwise, just breathe normally. And as much as possible, let your attention stay in the moment. So if the breath isn't a comfortable focus, you can go back to any of the options that we had last week, like listening or even noticing visually what's around you, feeling in your body, or noticing the breath. So when you're ready, we're going to roll over onto one side and make our way upright. When you come upright, we're going to make our way onto all fours. So on all fours, hands under the shoulders, knees under the hips. Your toes can be tucked under or feet flat. You can have a blanket under your knees if you need a bit of extra padding. Keep your elbows soft. So there's a tendency, I think I mentioned this last week, to kind of dump into the shoulders and lock the elbows. So elbows soft, pressing down into the hands, shoulders back. Let the back naturally extend here. This is called the cow position. And then the cat position is a rounded back. So you can let the spine lift, the tail and the chin come in. And again, arching as you inhale, rounding as you exhale. Keep checking in that you're not locking the arms and scrunching the shoulders. Think about the chest coming between the arms and find a little lift there. If you want, you can add child's pose to your exhale or stay with cat pose. And again, if it's helpful for you to stay more focused, you can add that noticing of the space after your exhale. Right, if you like, you can take a rest in child's pose. Maybe that's with your forearms down or your head on your fists or your flat hands. Could be head on the floor if that's accessible for you, or maybe even a block if that's necessary to feel that support under your head. And then coming back up to all fours, vary the movement in any way that would feel good. So circling the hips or a side to side movement. So inviting a little more space into the sides of the body. Great. And then coming back to all fours, here again, blocks might be helpful, but you can improvise if you don't have them. So using the blocks creates a little more length for your arms to be able to get 1 foot forward between the blocks. Now, here, padding again under the knees might be helpful. I've got a thick mat and a carpet here. If you've just got a thin mat and hard floor, recommend padding underneath your back knee. So you're going to come forward with one leg, doesn't really matter which, and you want that back hip and back knee lined up over each other. And you want to move that front leg as straight as possible without creating strain. So mine's fairly straight, yours may be a little more bent depending on how tight your hamstrings are. And then find a little lift in the chest. So if you don't have blocks, you're going to be reaching down for the floor. You may find you need a little bit more bend in your knee to find that reach. So either way. And then we'll rock forward. So it becomes a kind of a wide lunge, rocking forward, rocking back. You can lift up the toes as you rock back, maybe even lift the chest if you want a little bit more stretch here. Rock forward, rock back. So if you would find it comfortable, not a strain, to stay for a few more breaths with the leg straighter, you can stay for a few breaths. And then we'll move into the lunge position. So you probably want to bring your front heel back just a couple of inches so that when you come forward, the knee and the ankle line up. So it's fine if the ankle is ahead of the knee. You just want to maybe avoid, this position where the heel lifts and the knee comes over the ankle. And then from here, this is optional. If you want a little bit more, you can tuck your back toes under, lift up the back knee. Draw the back hip a little forward, the forward hip back. Feel like you're engaging the muscles around the glutes and the hips to stabilize the pose. And again, this next part is completely optional, but if you want a little bit more challenge, you could lift your hands up onto your front knee or overhead. Now, what makes this easier is if you bend the back knee, move the front leg straighter. It's a little easier lunge. Or if you want more challenge, move the back leg straighter and drop down a little lower into the lunge pose. From here, bring the hands down, lower the back knee. Bring the foot back. If you're using blocks, just put them aside for a moment and come back to your cat-cow movement or all fours to child's pose. For those of you who are feeling more energetic this morning and you want a bit more stretch, as we work with the cat-cow or all fours to child's pose, you could vary things by lifting up into downward dog, keeping the knees bent, lengthening the torso. Maybe the first couple times, just briefly coming into the pose and then back to all fours. And again, if child's pose is more your speed today, you can go ahead and hang out in child's pose. If downward dog feels good, maybe walking the feet in place as you hold the pose. Try to let your head relax. And when you come down, if you find that your wrists need a little bit of movement, you can sit back and do a few circles with your wrists. Open hands or fists, whatever feels good. Maybe give them a little shake out. And then we're ready to come into lunge on the other side. So again, if you have blocks and you find it helpful to use them, you can bring them under your hands, step the other foot forward. I don't think I specified which side, so as long as you're doing the other side. And again, you want that back, hip, and knee more or less lined up over each other. The front leg is as straight as is comfortable for you. It might be able to be straighter, but that would create tension or resistance, so we want to avoid that. So letting go is about finding that place where before we resist, and when we resist, we want to kind of find some ease in that resistance, so letting go of moving that deeply into a pose perhaps. So from here, you can rock forward into a little wider lunge and rock back. So again, if your hands are on the ground, it may be a little bit less movement. The other option, if you don't have blocks handy, is you could actually have a chair on either side of you and come into lunge and back using the chair for support. So lots of options. We can improvise. You don't need to buy these official yoga blocks. Right. And then when you're in that position with the front leg straighter, you could stay for a few breaths. In this position, I didn't mention it on the other side, but you could think about drawing your front heel back a little bit to engage a little more around the hips and keep the integrity of the pose a little bit more. From here, you could also find a little lift in the tail, lift in the chest if you feel like you want more stretch, but that's often not necessary here. And when we're ready to work with lunge, you're going to bring the heel back just a couple of inches, come forward into your lunge. You want that front knee and ankle more or less lined up over each other as the back leg stretches back. Option here is to stay where you are or to tuck the back toes under. Lift the back knee. And again, think about engaging around the hips and glutes. So you're drawing the right hip a little back, the back hip a little, or sorry, whichever leg is forward. The back hip a little forward, forward hip a little back. And if you feel stable and comfortable, you could try lifting your hands up onto your front knee. So remember, bending the back knee, moving the front leg a little straighter makes things a bit easier, sinking down. You don't want to go beyond this thigh being parallel to the floor, but you could go down to that extent and then maybe extending the arms overhead for a couple of breaths. So let go of the need for the pose to be perfect. In fact, let go of the need for anything to be perfect. This can be such a downfall when we're moving towards our goals, is we can get really stuck by thinking things aren't perfect or aren't good enough. So let's come back to all fours. Again, you can put the blocks aside and do a few, either cat-cow or all fours to child's pose. Or again, if downward dog is a pose that feels good for you and doesn't create strain, you could add that in here. Again, if you need some release for your wrists, you can sit and do a few circles, again, open or closed hands. And give them a little shake. So we are now going to come to a seated position. And here it is helpful if you have a blanket or a firm but not too thick cushion that you can sit on. And that helps to bring your pelvis into a more neutral alignment if you've got something to sit on. So if you've got a blanket, I recommend the curved edges forward so that you're sitting on an edge that's even rather than all the folds at the back of the blanket. And you'll come to sit your sit bones just at the edge of that fold, the edge of the blanket, and then straighten out your legs. And you might be able to feel that as you sit on the edge of the blanket, it sort of rolls the sit bones towards the edge, and it allows the pelvis to be a little bit more upright. So generally when we come to sit on the ground, we tend to roll back and slouch. The lower back's natural curve is inward, not outward. So when we're slouching, the curve is out. We want to at least find a fairly neutral spine, so even a little bit of inward curve at the lower back. You can use your hands on the floor beside you to support you in this pose. This is called Dandasana, or staff pose. If your hands don't reach the ground, fists is fine, or even using your blocks. So the arms can be a little bit bent, it's no problem, they can be straight. From here, let's extend the arms, extended Dandasana. Palms can face each other, shoulders relax down. Take a breath in, and as you exhale, bring one knee in towards your body. And then from here, we're going to allow the knee to release to the side. You might appreciate a block under your knee, or it may not be necessary for you. If you have a belt, you can use it. If not, you can, again, improvise using your hands. But if you've got the belt, you can bring it around the bottom of the extended leg. And then you want to hold your body upright, arms straight, and you can lean back with the support of the belt around the foot. Now, if you don't have a belt, just bring your hands onto your thigh, one hand on top of the other. So from here, you're going to inhale and find a little more length or extension of the spine. Exhale, hinge from your hip joints. Don't round your back here. It may not be very far that you can come forward, which is absolutely normal. Take another breath in, lengthen. Exhale, go another millimeter or whatever is available to you. Pause there. Check in that you're not creating tension, that you're not forcing your body into some particular position, but really allowing it to expand here. Take a breath in and lengthen again. If there's anywhere else to go, you can move a little more forward. And you may have reached your limit a couple of breaths ago. Stay where you are. And when you do reach that point where more would create tension, then from there you can allow the body to relax a little forward. So let the back round a bit now. The hands can stay on the leg, or if you're holding the belt, just let go. The hands can either be on the leg or the ground. If you want, you could bring your blocks beside you and rest on your elbows, or some of you may even have the ability to bring your elbows easily to the ground, and you can certainly do that. And then try to let your head relax down. So we'll stay here for a few breaths, and if your body says enough, you're going to come out of the pose just by slowly lifting up. Otherwise, come back to your exhalation. Notice on your inhalation where you're holding tension. And then as you exhale, see, could you soften a little bit? Could you let go without losing the integrity of the pose? So you want to still keep the straight leg active, toes pointing up, thigh engaged. But there's no need to hold tension in the shoulders, the face, the neck, the jaw, the upper back, the lower back. Could you soften there? When you're ready to come up, you can lift up through the chest. Take the arms and extend them overhead, coming back upright. And then exhaling, bring the knee back into the chest. As you inhale, extend the leg out, extend the arms up. And then as you exhale, bring the other knee in towards your body. Pause there for a moment, and we'll repeat that same move on the other side. So you're going to take the foot towards the thigh, the knee out to the side. Again, you could use a block to support it or not. And then you want to keep the straight leg active, toes point up. And if you've got the belt's going to make that happen with the foot. You want to drop through the thigh. Think about chest coming forward, shoulders moving back if you're using a belt. Same thing if your hands are on your thigh, just the feeling of lengthening the spine. And again, we'll take a breath in and lengthen a little more, find a little more extension. Exhale, try not to round the back in that those first few breaths as you come forward. So inhale, lengthen. Exhale, hinging at the hips, not at the waist or the upper back or the shoulders. When you've gone as far as you comfortably can without straining or forcing or pushing, you can then allow the spine to relax and round forward. Again, it might be using your hands to support you on the blocks or the ground or your leg, or maybe coming onto your elbows either on blocks or the floor. And again, we'll spend several breaths here, noticing where there's tension, and that noticing is easiest on the inhalation where the tension is more obvious, and then the exhale, could we let go? Could we soften? While keeping the integrity of the pose. When you're ready to come up, we'll lift up to a long spine, raising the arms overhead. Exhaling, knee coming in toward the chest. And then inhaling, stretching the leg out. So both legs are straight. Exhale, arms to the sides. So for the next one, we don't need the belt. And if your legs are straight and you're feeling any pull in the back of the knees, especially if you feel like when you come forward, you have to round your back to do any kind of forward movement with both legs straight. You might take a cushion or a rolled up blanket or even your blocks and tuck them under your knees. So you've just got that little bit of support to keep the knees bent, and then lifting the spine tall, reach up. And then exhale, come forward, try to keep a long spine. At the very end of your exhale, letting the back round. And then inhale, finding that lift. So extending the spine, it's almost a back bend coming up, keeping that length as long as you can. Finally letting the head and upper back release at the end of your exhale. So it's not like you're trying to keep the head up as you come forward, but finding openness in the chest and letting everything release. Right, this time will be our last one, coming forward. Inhale, coming up. Exhale, release the arms down. And you can move the blocks aside. You might need them for the next one. Just if they were tucked under your knees, you can just move them aside for a moment. Bring both knees in. Let the soles of the feet come together, the knees apart. And again, blocks under the thighs or knees might be helpful. If you feel that your body is being pushed back in this position, bring your hands behind you and use them to help create that neutral spine again, where the lower back is more curved inward than out. If you feel like there's a little bit more ease in the pose, you could bring your hands to your ankles and use that little bit of leverage. So you're kind of drawing back on the ankles to lift the chest and lift the head. Now this might be the final destination for you in this pose. If you want a little bit more and it feels, maybe a lot more, if it feels comfortable for you to add a bit of forward bend, you could do that. So you come forward again on the exhale, inhale, lengthen, exhale, hinging at your hips. So same pattern as in Janu Shirshasana, the pose with one leg bent, one leg straight. When we get as far as we can without rounding the back, then you can allow the spine to release. You might bring the hands to the floor to support you. And take a few breaths here. Again, same pattern with the breathing. You could notice on the inhale, where am I holding? Where could I let go? And then on the exhale, soften where you can. When you're ready, come upright. Lift the arms overhead with a breath in. As you exhale, bring your hands to your knees, bring your knees in toward your body, and then stretch the legs out and give them a little shake. So now you can move all of your stuff aside, including that blanket if you were using a blanket to sit on. Lean back on your hands, bend your knees, have your feet wider than your hips, maybe about shoulder distance or even wider, and you'll come down to one side and then down to the other side. Most likely your body will kind of crawl forward on your mat, and when that happens, you can either walk your hands forward or shift your hips back. If you want to add a little bit more of a twist here, as the knees go one way, you'll release the opposite hand, bring it around either to the knee or to the floor behind you, and use that little bit of leverage to lift your spine tall as you turn, and then back around to the other side. And again, using the hands on the ground to lift as you turn. Great, and then come back to the center. Again, you can stretch out the legs, give them a little shake. And you'll find your way back onto your back. So when you get there, both knees to your chest. Stretching the legs up, the arms either out to the sides or overhead. And then back in towards your body. Exhale as you come in. Inhale as you extend. Good. And then knees to chest, any movement that you'd like. So rocking, circling the knees, holding the knees and breathing, or even releasing the feet to the floor. So whatever feels right for you now as we start to wind down and get ready to relax for a few minutes. So take your time to find a position that's comfortable for you. And just as always with these online classes, if you're about to get going with your day and lying down would put you back to sleep, you may want to just come to sit for the last few minutes. And if you want to do a longer relaxation shavasana at the end here, you could just ignore my instructions to come upright at the end and to stay a little longer as you need or as you require today. So no prescriptions, just really tuning into what is right for you. So as you come to the position that's comfortable for you, that works for you today and whatever is going on with your life, come back to your breath. No need to change the breath in any way at all. Simply tune into the rhythm of the breath as it is. And as you exhale, see if you can soften any holding around the jaw or the mouth. And releasing and softening all of the muscles of your face, around your eyes, across your forehead. Feel the skin of your scalp soften a little and let the weight of your head sink down if you're lying down. If you're sitting, try to find that magic spot where the neck and head are balanced over the spine. And there's very little effort in holding your head up. Soften and drop down through the shoulders. Feel the throat soften. Relax and drop down through your arms, your hands. Let go of any holding, any tension, and any need for anything to be different than it is. So for instance, if you ask yourself to let go of tension and then a few seconds later you notice that it's still there, acknowledge that with compassion. Try not to dwell there and just move on. Exhaling, feel a softening all around the rib cage. Relaxing and softening the lower back and the abdomen. And then notice any holding or tension around the hips, pelvis. Could you relax and release the thighs a little bit more? Softening and dropping down into the legs, the knees, the calves, ankles. Letting your feet be as relaxed as possible. Let them go. I'll share with you again today the first 12 sutras that start with the invitation to commit to the practice and the defining of the mind, and ending with the idea of balancing effort and letting go in order to reach that elusive state of mindfulness. Atha yoga nushasanam yogaha chitta vritti nirodhaha tada drashtuhu swarupe avasthanam vritti sarupyam itaratra vrittaya panchataya klishta klishta pramana viparyaya vikalpa nidra smritaya pratyaksha anumana agama pramanani viparyayo nitya jnanam atadrupa pratishtam shabda jnananupati vastu shunyo vikalpaha abhava pratyayalambana tamo vritir nidra anubhuta vishaya asampramoshaha smritihi abhyasa vairagyabhyam tannirodhaha. Now it's time, if you're ready, if you choose to stay longer, you can, but it's time to let go of Shavasana and come back to the room that you're in. Start to be aware of the space around you and maybe gradually move into that space. Again, if you've chosen to stay a little longer for Shavasana, or if you want to spend some time in seated meditation, now is a great time. We've opened the hips and legs a little more. We've strengthened the back a bit. So if you choose to carry on with your practice this morning, enjoy. And if you are ready to close the practice with me, you can come to sit as you're ready. And bring your palms together. So as you go out into the world, take this idea, this lesson of letting go. And when you find yourself getting stuck and holding on, you might tune into your breath for a moment. Have the intention of letting go of tension in your body and see what transpires when you bring that awareness into the situation. Namaste.